Hey lovely, and welcome to lesson 2, which is all about what a sleep problem looks like, right? So although yes, you can have sleep pattern problems, and yes, you can have problems that are seen in the behavior, sometimes there is actually no indicator in the sleep pattern, and sometimes there is actually no indicator in the behavior as well, okay? So realistically, although I'm going to run you through what the sleep pattern and behavior problems are that you might be seeing, I also want you to know that the only true indicator that we have an issue is the symptoms. Right, so the only way of really truly finding out what is going on with the sleep is actually investigation. And that is obviously what we're going to do in the next modules after this, okay? But you need to obviously know what are the sleep pattern indicators and the behaviour indicators, because this will obviously help you to assess your progress, okay? So the very first sleep pattern issue I'm going to explain to you is the neurological pattern. So if we have neurological pattern issues, then this is going to show. Okay, so what I mean by neurological pattern is every single infant and child person essentially will have a neurological pattern of which sleep will roll out of, and it's predictable. Okay, so when an infant is born, essentially what will happen is they will be born with a big store of maternal melatonin, which is melatonin that is passed over from you to your baby in utero, okay? So essentially what then happens is your baby would be quite sleepy to start off with. Typically you would see this wear off somewhere between 3 and 6 weeks in most cases, okay? Then what happens is the endocrine system starts to function a bit more, or in a bit more of an organised way at around the 6-week mark, okay? This then leads into around the 8-9 week mark, a big surge of melatonin coming into the system that triggers the circadian rhythm or the sleep rhythm function to happen at this point in the daytime, right? So essentially what then happens is the sleep cycles will develop at this point. They're 40 to 45 minutes, and this is where you would typically see catnapping develop, okay? Then what happens is the night sleep will change. So the circadian rhythm will start to work at night, somewhere between 4 to 6 months, right? Never before 17 weeks though, okay? This will mean that you will start to see some more mature sleep spindles. So a spindle is a little bit different to a cycle. It is a sleep cycle, so a normal sleep cycle, 40-45 minutes, plus a longer one together, and this makes a roughly 2-hour block, give or take, right? So essentially sleep spindles then come into place at night for the very first time between 4 and 6 months, okay? This is what you would have probably heard being called the 4-month sleep regression. Then we will have a 9-month sleep regression that's triggered by the true development of separation anxiety. It happens usually between 8 to 10 months. And then you will have the 12-month sleep regression between around 11 to 13 months. And this is another wave of separation anxiety plus the development of cause and effect. Okay, then you have the 18-month sleep regression, which is another wave of separation anxiety, which is then caused by the development of understanding language, okay? And then you will have a typical development around 2, which is another wave of separation anxiety. I find this window a bit bigger, usually like 22 to 26 months is the sort of range where this can happen, okay? And it's another wave of separation anxiety, plus it's also the development of spoken language at that point that plays a big part. And then you will have somewhere between 2.5 and 3, the development of abstract imagination, which is the development of true fear as well. So you've got some pretty big markers along the way where you would expect there would be some deficit in sleep based on those developments, right? So essentially, if your child is off track as far as the neurological pattern, and big ones here are obviously night sleep issues before 4 months, catnapping before 8 weeks, right? Those sorts of things are definitely indicators that we're off the neurological pattern, okay? Now, next thing is catnapping that where the catnap's actually less than a sleep cycle, okay? So we're doing very short catnaps. So very short cat naps. What we're talking about here is we're talking about like the 10, 20, 30 minutes, right? So essentially these naps are less than a sleep cycle. So if you're seeing these after 8 weeks, this is an issue because it is actually indicating that there's a forced wake up here, okay? So that is definitely a flag. Another flag is then waking less than a sleep spindle overnight after 4 months. So minus 2 hours. Okay, so this is actually a flag that there's something going on there causing a forced wake up. And then we have the long periods of awake time. And what I'm talking about here is plus 30 minutes after a feed, okay? And then we also have the latent sleep phase at bedtime. This is after 4 months. And this is where I'm talking about 30 plus 30 minutes extra to settle at bedtime, okay, on a normal neurological wake time, all right? And then the other one is the early morning, wake. And then I am talking about here minus 1 hour earlier than what you wanted, 1 hour or less earlier than what you actually were aiming for, okay? So basically then these behaviours that you might see, right, you've got 2 main behaviours. One of them is resistance. And resistance is an issue because the part of the brain, the amygdala, that you're going to be learning about in the next video, it actually will block sleep if it doesn't want it to pass, right? So essentially that resistance to sleep and difficulty settling is essentially a flag, okay? Then the other thing that we have is what I've mentioned a few times is the forced wake. So the forced wake is definitely a behaviour that you will see, and waking up feeling upset, right? So it might be crying all of a sudden or even screaming all of a sudden, and difficulty then calming down, okay? So the other behaviour that some people see is a really wired type behaviour, okay? So wired behaviour in the middle of the night essentially means awake, not upset, certainly not tired, right? This is actually another behaviour that you might see, okay? So as you can see, these might present differently from child to child. And as I mentioned before, you might not ever get this sleep pattern problem. My second child was a perfect example of this no sleep pattern problem. Her naps were perfect and she slept through the night from 4.5 months. However, she had a sleep quality problem the whole time that I'm still actually fixing, right? And I've certainly had children who have had sleep pattern problems and also symptoms, but then no behaviour issues as well. So they weren't actually fighting sleep, and they weren't actually wired or crying when they woke up, but the pattern might be just really short as well. And I want to also point out when we're talking about behaviour, yes, sometimes you can get irritable behaviour in the daytime, but this is actually research proven to be just related to their temperament more than anything and how they cope with things not going correctly, right? So if you have an easy temperament child who just takes things in their stride, they might just be super happy and then still have all of these problems, okay? So hopefully I've cast a little bit more light on what a sleep problem actually looks like here. Thanks for joining me in this video, and I'll see you in the next lesson. Bye.